We can always shorten what I say. Well, thank you for coming to listen. I'm going to talk about Knowlands wood mostly, but Knowlands farm as well. So we've been farming there we've been looking after the farm since 1970, and for the most part, the farm was looked after by others. It was farmed in a traditional way and everything was tied in neat, and the hedges were small, and that's the way it was. Lots of fertilisers, lots of insecticides and so on. But eventually we took over the management of the farm because the Cornwall family couldn't make any money with it in the end, I think. It's clay, it's good for brick making, but not very good for farming. So for some time we've been adopting a different approach, and so I just want to talk a bit about the approach, the philosophy. So if I press these buttons, some things will come up to remind me what to say. So we moved to not putting any insecticides whatever on the farm, because in my view insects are absolutely vital to all the rest of life, wildlife, birds and animals and everything really depends on the insect life. So if you can encourage insects, everything else follows. And we call this wildlife friendly farming, and we're part of an organisation which kind of encourages us, wildlife friendly farmers if you like. Arosha UK is a Christian conservation charity, and they have a thing called Partners in Action, and we are a partner in action. So they offer advice and help and encouragement really. Slug pellets, we don't put them anymore. We still probably might use fertiliser sometimes, artificial fertiliser, minimal amounts, and we might use some herbicides on occasion, but minimal amounts. So we're trying to farm in a different way. The result is smaller crops and smaller losses when things go badly wrong, which they always do, often do. So we used to put a lot of money into it and get a bigger crop, but still make a loss. So I thought there's no point in doing that. Much more fun to put less in, encourage the wildlife. And it seems to be making a difference. It shows how good I am at PowerPoint. I've got green writing on the green picture. And I can't read it myself. If anybody can tell me what it says, that would be good. Yeah, but it's talking about the different aspects really, looking after the place. The first is, long ago the government provided money for people to make conservation strips. So around the arable fields we have these strips which are just left. They're mown every 2 or 3 years to prevent them becoming woodland, but they're left to see what grows, and they've produced really quite interesting things. That picture shows what is an arable field, but at the moment converted to grass, a grass lay, a mix. But in the near ground here is the conservation strip. So these are places where a barn owl can hunt, because there are bulbs in there, and all sorts of flowers come, which butterflies like. We have ponds around the farm, and these produce, I think, again, thinking about insects. With ponds you get insects, and some people think that's a terrible thing, and get out the flypaper. But I think it's something to rejoice in. The hedges have gone a bit funny. They used to be neat and trim, and they were sort of 2 foot wide and 4 foot high. Now they're just a mess. But it's a good mess, and that's an example. That's mostly blackthorn, as you see, producing that sloes, and there's a lot of haws in the hedges. There are a lot of hips as well. All these things are food for the animals and birds that need food in the winter, including mice and so on. Oh, there is one. So how carefully I prepared this talk, I'm quite surprised to see what comes up. That was a wood mouse climbing around in the hedge in my garden. That picture you've seen before if you attended Simon's talk earlier. We planted some bird-friendly crop with help from the government, and all the linnets came. Over 1,200 linnets in one photograph, would you believe? And there probably were 2,000 there. Unfortunately, they ate all the food, and the next week was 7 linnets. So we're not getting things absolutely right all the time. It would be better if there was sort of more gradual supply of food. And that year, the disappearance of the linnets happened in about late February. So by the time March came along, it was quite a hungry gap for the birds. So we could do better. Now I want to talk about the wood mainly. Now the wood has been managed, it's an ancient coppice wood, so that means all the time people over the centuries would have been harvesting firewood out of it, and probably some other bits of timber as well, but mostly firewood. There's a lot of hornbeam there, but there are actually over 20 species of native tree growing in the wood in one way or another. So it's got a good variety of species, and all sorts of insects depend on different species. A lot of them are very specific. So there's a moth that will only go on aspen. Oak has many, many insects which depend on oak, and a lot which use it which don't depend on it. There's birch, there's alder, there's any number of species there. Some of them just one or two, such as alder buckthorn and wild service, just a few, but they're there. We opened the wood up to people who might like to come and see the bluebells for a time. I think we were raising money for this village hall at the time, and so we said you'd like to come and see the bluebells and pay, and then and people did. And then we thought, well, that worked well, and why not let them come other times of year? So principally, my wife Harry, who was the driver of this, and we opened the wood up more and more to people, but we had to put a brake on it because if too many people came, it would kind of spoil what we're trying to do. So people come to see the butterflies or whatever it is that they've come for, often to see the wood anemones and bluebells in the spring. And that's good, but we don't allow dogs, principally not because of the dogs, but because the numbers would just be overwhelming and it would be too many. So we had to say no to dogs. Now the things that I've found by experience work in the wood is let the light in. So when we first started, there were my mother-in-law said, oh, what a pity, no flowers in the wood. Well, those of you who know the wood now, there are a lot of flowers. That's because we've let the light in. And we've opened up the clearing, which used to be a field, and we made it back to a field. We've opened up the wide rides, which used not to be there, and we're conducting coppicing. So every year, an acre or up to 2 acres is cut, harvested, and the result is, boom, we've got light coming in. When we began that in the 80s, suddenly there were white admirals in the wood. Well, I'd never even heard of a white admiral. I hadn't seen one. I didn't know there was such a thing. And I thought, wow, it's pretty exciting. If you give it a coppicing, you get this. So that really started me off. The variety of species I've already talked about. There are lots of different species of tree in the wood, and that's just a fluke, but it's not an entire fluke. It's because for the last 400 years at least, probably longer, it has been managed for coppicing. And so any species that grew, appeared, have been cut again, and that spurs them on to grow again, and so on. So it goes. And variety of stature, that means, well, always we've got some 1-year-olds, some 6-year-olds, some 12-year-olds, some 20-year-olds, and we work on about a 35, 40-year cycle. So it takes about 40 years before you can harvest the hornbeam. Probably 30 years for a species like ash is ready to cut after 30 years. The oak is was very slow growing in Knowlands. Grows slower there probably than elsewhere. So you get very tight grained wood. And mostly we let the oak grow, but we cut some so as to give them rest room. So when you neglect coppice, everything grows up. Eventually there's a complete canopy of leaves, which particularly the hornbeam makes a complete canopy, blocks out the light, so nothing grows below except the spring flowers, which make their appearance and do their thing before the leaves are there. So now you're getting the first anemones appearing, and I hesitate to tell you this is really bad news. Somebody told me today they'd seen bluebells. That's awful, isn't it? I'm hoping that the bluebells in Knowlands will not be so early, but they will be early this year, I fear. It doesn't matter, I suppose, but it's not what you'd seek. So now the wood anemones are a great joy every year, and they do particularly well in an area where they're there and they're doing all right, and then you clear it and they go wow, bang, and you get these lovely effects. That open area, there were no primroses at all, except in one tiny little patch where the light got in when we started. And I went through with an axe and over a period of about 3 years cut the trees that had grown up voluntarily in this clearing, and I made it back into a clearing. And these primroses are just wonderful to behold. In the next few weeks that they will have it. They're very good in the evening because whereas most flowers are sun lovers and so are primroses, I suppose, but these, they sort of kind of glow, so if you go in the evening you see them at their best. Lizards are there, again, I don't think you get those without a bit of sun coming in, so it's nice to have common lizards in the wood. One of my favourite butterflies, the green-veined white, there it is feeding on dog violet. There's a lot of dog violet in the wood, and without the dog violet you wouldn't get any fritillaries, because that's the food plant for the silverwash fritillary and other fritillary species which we are hoping will come one day. I can't persuade the authorities to let me introduce them. They say that's not the thing to do. Oh well. Oh, there's another green-veined white. The orange tip, well, that's one of the first butterflies to emerge from a chrysalis in this time of year. So soon, probably in April, beginning of April, you might see them. At the moment, you're seeing a few butterflies on a sunny day, which are the ones that have stayed as butterflies over the winter. But the ones that emerge in the spring are yet to appear. Bramble, there's a lot of bramble everywhere, and I take some pains to make sure that it is allowed to flourish, whereas other people try and attack bramble and say, what can I do with my bramble problem? I've got bramble everywhere. Terrible. It's not terrible, it's wonderful. And the butterflies that we get in June and July, the summer butterflies, which are a huge number of meadow browns, we gatekeeper, we get the woodland butterflies, such as, let's see, the white admiral, and the silverwash fritillary. They all visit the bramble all the time, so it's a wonderful resource. The white admirals in Knowlands Wood are people who know about butterflies will come specially to see them. You can see a much better selection of white admirals. You're much more likely to see them here than you are at Nep, for example, where they have wonderful. They have what's the butterfly? Purple emperor. They've got people trek there to see the purple emperors. We have a few, but not many. Yes, this is one of my favourite butterflies. It's just a wonder to see them. They have a very short season, so they appear on the 22nd of June. Just recently they've been appearing 2 weeks before that, but more or less then. And 6 weeks later they're probably gone, or they're looking very, very tatty. The silverwash fritillary is just wonderful. It's one of the biggest butterflies in the UK, and lots of them around there. It's not a particularly rare butterfly. The white admiral is not rare, but it's much more scarce. They appear on the same day very often. Whatever the day is, you see the first one of their species, you'll see the first one of the other, or the day before or the day after. Somebody was asking about ragwort earlier. I regard ragwort as a wonderful blessing, and I encourage it. Oh, I don't discourage it. Comma butterfly with posing. And some of these butterflies are very good at posing, so it sort of encourages you if you want to take photographs. that ladybird, I think, is a harlequin, so probably boo to harlequin, but I don't know. Red admiral, yes, posing. Gatekeeper. Lots of gatekeepers around. They like the woodland clearings, woodland edges as well. Very, very keen on bramble flower. Meadow browns, you get lots and lots of them. That's a grassland butterfly. You find it out in the open in fields, but it also occurs in the openings in the wood. Mayfly, we don't get many mayflies around, but as long as you have water, you might get them. So it's lovely to see that one. We have some day-flying moths. That's speckled yellow. Doesn't look very yellow in that picture, but it is. Unusually, it's feeding on bluebell flower. You don't see bluebells being used much as a nectar source. Cinnabar moth, another one that flies in the day. Broad-bodied chaser, photographer's friend, just sits there. You go, set up a tripod and so on, it's still sitting there. It flies away and come back and perch on exactly the same spot. Brilliant. You're already focused on that spot and then it comes back. Golden ringed dragonfly, and yeah, this is a wanderer from other places, but we're seeing them more and more now. Most years we see one or two, and it's a wonderful, spectacular, rather huge dragonfly. Now, I've come to the end of my talk, but I thought it'd be nice to take questions and have time for chatting of this and that. Oh, I haven't got actually a huge amount of time. When do you want me to finish?
Take a couple, yeah.
Couple of minutes. Okay.
A couple of questions.
Do you get deer in the wood?
We do, and the deer will browse heavily the understory of the wood and kind of alter the character of the wood. So if we have too many deer, it's a bit of a problem. Having some is fine, and we shoot them so that to encourage them to go somewhere else and provide good conscience-free meat. The only conscience-free meat, by the way. good for you. No fat on it, and it's organic, and everything good. So we control the deer a bit, but we have deer. We have muntjac, fallow deer, and roe deer a little bit.
You had a picture of a field mouse. Do you encourage them? Or then it just happened, did it just come because they...
Well, those conservation strips that we talked about at the beginning are a big encouragement to them because they provide space for them to live. We do nothing to encourage them. We don't sort of put advertisements out saying come this way, but they come.
They're quite rare though, aren't they, these days?
They're not rare.
They are in Argyle.
And that was a wood mouse, but we have a yellow-necked mouse and a wood mouse. It's very confusing because the wood mouse gets called a field mouse as well. Simon, am I right about this?
Wood mouse and yellow neck mouse.
Are the same?
No, different.
They're different, yeah. Anyway, we get some mice and voles and shrews as well.
With dormice, are you seeing much of an increase in dormice?
Well, I see no evidence of dormice, but I know that the ecologists who put out traps, they put out monitoring equipment, have found some evidence, but they must be very scarce because I think I would come across them. All
Brilliant.
done?
Thanks very much. That's fantastic.